Okay, welcome. Today's presentation is to go over the draft transportation master plan. Oops, sorry, there we go. So today's agenda, we'll talk about the process that we've done to date and show the project timeline and past community engagement. We'll go over the details of the draft plan and then follow it up with some next steps in the process. There we go. Okay, so the project included 5 phases. We started in June of 2021 with phase 1, where we collected a bunch of data. And then in phase 2, we evaluated that data and existing and future conditions. And then in phase 3, we looked at some ways to mitigate the issues that we've identified in phase 2. And then we did a survey. We sent out a survey to the public, and we asked for their input on the potential measures that we've identified in phase 3. And then we incorporated all of that input into phase 4, where we developed the draft transportation master plan. And you can see represented by the green speech bubble, that's where we are today. And phase 5, finalizing the transportation master plan, will be in early May. So a brief overview of the community engagement. We did an online survey in January. We did a virtual public information session in March. We didn't have a lot of attendees, so we made sure that we recorded the presentation and had it available on the district's website to view on demand. And then we had a follow-up survey to allow anyone that viewed that presentation to ask any questions if they had any. And we summarized what we heard in a report, which is available to view online on the district's webpage. And that webpage we've been updating throughout the project. And then today is our final public information session to present the draft plan. Okay, so here's where we get into the draft transportation master plan. We'll try and skim over the first 4 sections just because that's what was presented in the first public engagement session. And then, yeah, so the first section, we talk about the background of Invermere and a brief overview of the engagement. Then section 2, we talk about demographics, land use, travel behavior of Invermere, and the key issues that Invermere is experiencing today on the transportation network. In section 3, we go over the vision, goals, and objectives. And section 4, we talk about the existing conditions of the transportation network. And in section 5, we talk about the expected growth in Invermere and how that impacts the traffic volumes. And then in section 7, we evaluate that growth on the transportation network and provide some capital projects, strategies, policies to mitigate those concerns. And then section 7 talks about the phasing and funding strategy of the plan. Okay, so the first section, Invermere today, just talks a lot about the background documents and data collection. But the main thing to highlight today is the key issues that we identified, and that includes, and these came from different district staff and from the first round of engagement. So the key issues are improving safety for all road users, expanding and connecting pedestrian and cycling networks, improving accessibility throughout the network, intersection improvements at 7th Avenue and 13th Street, so that's Dysfunction Junction, 7th Avenue and 4th Street, that's by the Sobeys, and 10th Avenue and 4th Street, just down from Sobeys, and Panorama Drive and 3rd Street, that's the connection to the Panorama. And we also identified traffic congestion at 7th Avenue, 7th A Avenue at Kinsman Beach, and along 7th Avenue and 3rd Street and Athelmere Highway and whatever you want to call that road. So the next section, setting the direction, we go over the transportation vision statement and the goals and objectives of the plan. These were developed through looking at the district's previous plans and values of the community to make sure that the transportation master plan was in line with what the community values. Okay, so evaluating the existing conditions, we found that there was one intersection that experiences operational concerns, and that's at 3rd Street and Panorama Drive. You can see here represented by the red dot. And you can see that the middle dot is Saturday peak hours, so it's only really a concern during those high Saturday volumes. Also, we had identified some queues at Lakeview Drive, King Basket Trail, and Invermere Road, so that's over here. And I don't know if you can see my mouse. 3rd Avenue and 3rd Street, so that's right here by the A&W. And then 4th Avenue and 4th Street by the Sobeys. Existing conditions continued. So we looked at the traffic volumes along the roadways. So that's two-way vehicles per day on the road network. And we identified a couple of sections of road that have high volumes compared to their design capacity. And we also looked at ICBC collision data to see if there was any trends in collisions throughout the district. We identified 4 intersections that have a higher number of collisions, but it's still really not that high. It's only 7 to 8 collisions within 2016 to 2020. And the district should monitor this to see if a trend continues, especially if nothing is changed at these intersections. Okay, so here's where we get into the information that we haven't talked about so far in our previous public engagement session. And it's a bit technical, I keep it pretty high level, but this is where we develop the traffic model, where we take existing traffic volumes and we apply a growth rate to it and spit out future traffic volumes. But we don't want to apply the same growth rate to all the traffic volumes across the network, because that's not representative of real life. So we did a check to see what the district is expecting for growth in the district, and then looked at the housing needs study to see what that says for population growth. And we found that the population for both kind of scenarios was similar. So that means that the district can expect all this growth or can handle this growth that's happening. So, for example, this yellow blob here, number 7, Castle Rock area, that is expected to grow more significantly than the rest of Invermere. So we applied a higher growth rate to that, the volumes in those intersections in that area. We should note that we used 2016 census data only because 2021 census data was not available during the time we made the model, but also it's also pretty skewed because of the pandemic. Those trends are likely not going to continue, and it's also not fully available yet. It's only a couple of data is available from that 2021 census. So the results of our growing the traffic are shown here in this figure. The red is bad, green is good. So 3rd Avenue, 3rd Street, Panorama Drive and 3rd Street, 4th Avenue and 7th Avenue, 4th Street and 4th Street, and 10th Avenue, 7th Avenue and 9th Street, and 13th Street and 10th Avenue. Those are main concerns for the future. Also, the corridor of 7th Avenue and 3rd Street is still continues to have high volumes. So moving on to potential mitigation measures. So If you filled out the survey online, you will remember this graphic. I won't go through it all because most of it's the same. I will highlight though the first project in Untitled where this route that goes through Untitled, it's to provide an alternative route through Untitled for trucks. It's contingent on improvements at 3rd Street and Panorama Drive. If that intersection can be improved in a way where there aren't concerns at the intersection, then the route may not be needed. And then also, if the route is needed, it's going to be like the intention is not to direct truck traffic through residential streets, but it's to find a route that works for the neighborhood. And then also project 6, we had identified that one of the potential measures could be a always stop control, but it is already an always stop control. So we removed that from our suggestions, and it could be a signal or a roundabout. And then we've also added the 13th project, where it wasn't flagged in our analysis because it's not, the volumes are not causing any delays. It's more of a operational concern where people are confused and don't know what to do with that intersection that causes the issues. And then we also reviewed previous traffic studies that the district has completed. So the 7th Avenue traffic study identified improvements at 13th Street and 14th Street, just to the layout, and that would improve the intersection. And then a school safety study, so that's the schools at 14th Street and 13th Avenue. Adjustments to the bus loop were recommended, along with modifications to 14th Street and 13th Avenue, realignment of 13th Avenue into 13th Street, and addition of curb extensions just to improve safety for pedestrians. And then we also identified some changes to the road classifications based on these traffic volumes that we predict, and how we kind of see the roadways functioning in the future, and the recommended capital projects. So for example, this route here down 10th Avenue to 17th Street to the beach, we recommend that the road kind of be widened and accommodate like another route to the beach, just so that's not so congested. And we should note that the district's bylaw that shows all these road classifications is being updated right now and will include these future road cross sections, road classifications. We also updated the district's standard road cross sections to be more in line with the future road conditions and classifications that we determined in our analysis and review. So that's just the part of the road that, like the surface of the road right of way. So just how the district allocates that to cars, to parking, to sidewalks, etc. And then these proposed cross sections will provide the basis for updating the bylaw, and where more details will be added. And I'll pass it over to Sarah to walk us through the strategies in the plan.
Yes, thank you, Kayla. So in support of the vision, 5 overall themes for the goals were identified that reflect the value of the community. And these 5 themes are a safe community, a connected community, an environmentally sustainable community, an economically sustainable community, and an innovative community. Strategy for each of these themes were developed in consultation with the community and district staff. And many of these strategies align with the strategies from the Joint Active Transportation Plan. The strategies that were most supported by the public during the engagement involved accommodation for people walking and cycling. Next slide, please.
Got it.
We're talking now about policies. Other transportation policy that are included in the Transportation Master Plan includes active transportation, parking, transit services, traffic calming, emerging technologies. For the active transportation, the main strategies for the Transportation Master Plan is to coordinate the road network improvements with the recommended active transportation improvements outlined in the joint active transportation plan that was completed with the Shusha Band in 2021. Still under policy for parking policy, the 2013 parking study provided several recommendations, some of which have not been implemented yet. So the Transportation Master Plan highlights which policies still need to be done and implemented. And some examples include the upgrade of the wayfinding to parking lots, upgrade Lakeview parking lots layout, and imposing a 2 hours parking restriction along Main Street. The study also recommended that the parking supply to be reevaluated within 5 years. The Transportation Master Plan also provides some recommendation on bicycle parking, which aligns with those outlined in the Joint Active Transportation Plan. Regarding a policy on transit service, the existing mode share split for transit in Invermere is quite low, based on the 2016 census information. This is likely due to the lack of transit routes and frequency of the existing transit services in Invermere. The Transportation Master Plan notes some key strategy to promote a transit usage in Invermere and include working in partnership with the BC Transit and TransLink to improve a local and regional connection and services, improve passengers' amenities and accessibility. This includes a consideration for better sidewalk connecting to bus stop and more amenities such as shelters and benches at the passengers' waiting areas. Recommendation also include explore on-demand transit services opportunities in Invermere. For traffic calming policy, traffic calming is a process of changing driver behavior along a roadway to more closely fit with the expectation of adjacent resident and other road users. The purpose of implementing traffic calming measure along a roadway would be to reduce vehicular speeds, discourage shortcutting, minimize conflict between the street users, and improve the neighborhood environment. The Transportation Master Plan identifies a few corridors that will benefit from traffic calming measures. In addition, traffic calming measure and programming can be used by the district in consultation with the residents for considerations, as well to ensure local roads are functioning as intended. And last policy included the emerging technologies. Specifically, climate change, the need for more affordable mode of transportation and innovation have brought new mobility devices to the street, changing the way people move and adding an element of uncertainty to how we may move in the future. While changing transportation technology can have a negative impact, they offer a lot of opportunity to bring positive changes. This mode can be more sustainable, safer, and provide increasingly affordable mobility options. The district will need to expect and plan for a new transportation mode and greater number of zero-emission vehicles, introduction of connected autonomous vehicles as well. Some considerations include implementing charging stations, introduction of e-bikes and e-scooters, and infrastructure that support the new mobility. Regarding an implementation framework of the Transportation Master Plan, we developed an implementation framework for the recommended strategy and capital improvement project. The framework includes the following aspect: a time frame, and each recommendation is identified either within a short term, within 5 years, or long term, 5 years and beyond initiatives. And many recommendations will be implemented on an ongoing basis, and in which case they are shown under each time frame. The method of implementation identifies how each action will be implemented. Leadership suggests the jurisdiction responsible for leading each recommendation. Many recommendations will be led by the District of Invermere, while others are supported by external agencies, such as the Ministry of Transportation, BC Transit, and other stakeholders and community. This is an example how the implementation framework look in the Transportation Master Plan as a table. So this framework represents all the strategies developed under each goal theme that was described previously. The framework provides guidance for the district on the timing, the type of projects, capital or operation and maintenance, or policy and programming, and who will be the driver lead for the strategy. Highlights of the strategy identify for the short term, so within the next 5 years. For safe and connected community include, for example, review the snow and ice policy for active mode infrastructure to improve the service. Develop a phasing strategy to address the gaps in the transportation network. And other strategy under the environmentally sustainable, economically sustainable community, for example, include ensuring planning policy and design measure align with the district ongoing climate change initiative, and update the 2013 parking strategy to confirm parking needs. Next slide, please, on the capital improvement. The implementation framework was also developed for the capital transportation improvement. And this table shows the improvement project they were previously highlighted and when they are anticipated to be completed. Some in short terms, within 5 years, and some on the long term, beyond the 5 years. The table also shows the different stages of where the projects are and indicate which project will require an initial network of functional planning study prior to go into detailed design or construction. Some highlights of the table or example for project to be completed in the short term, so within a 5 year, include a planning study to review the requirements for the Panorama Drive 3rd Street intersection in conjunction with the 3rd Street and 7th Avenue corridor in connection throughout Untitled. And as mentioned earlier, further review of the connection through Untitled will be required to explore alternative connections that do not negatively impact residents in the area, and also an engagement with the CP Rail on a potential the existing crossing or future crossing. Another example of the short-term potential project will be the implementation of a roundabout at 7th Avenue and 4th Street. All these intersection and corridors were identified as in the red, if you want, not performing under existing conditions. Regarding the funding strategy, so next slide, please. There are many available sources of funding for transportation infrastructures and strategies. And the district will explore a number of different strategies to help leverage its investments. These strategies include the following: capital planning. They incorporated the recommendation from the transportation master plan into the district budget to help ensure the short-term projects are budgeted for implementation, so that the transportation improvements are integrated with the other capital projects, such as utility projects or the streetscapes improvement projects. Developers leverage transportation investment during the planning for new development projects, including, for example, public realm improvement such as sidewalk, pathways, enhanced connection to transit, bicycle parking, payment in lieu of parking, and community amenity contribution such as charging station, bicycle repair station, etc. Development cost charges. The District of Invermere has a development cost charges bylaw that should be regularly updated to include the project identified in the transportation master plan and future plan. DCC, that's the short name of it, eligible project, should also include active transportation and transit projects that benefit new growth in the community. Provincial programs and initiatives. The province administers numerous grants to help promote especially active transportation infrastructure and a sustainable transportation project to help reduce climate change impacts. Federal funding, Canada as well, as grant available to municipality to help improve active transportation planning and infrastructure projects. For example, safety improvement for a grade railway crossing. ICBC, this is a community grant program that provides funding for a road project that improve road safety. So what are the next steps? As indicated at the beginning of the presentation, we are between the phase 4 and the phase 5. And following today's presentation, the team will finalize the draft transportation master plan and bring it back to council on May 10 for approval and endorsement. And now we are open to questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah and Kayla. So we haven't received any questions in the chat. This is your time. You are now able to unmute yourself or raise your hand if you'd like to ask your question out loud, and I'll give it some space for you to ask. Oh, I see one hand from Lori. Please go ahead, Lori. I'll ask you to unmute if you like.
Hey there, what a fabulous presentation. What a lot of work I can see that's gone into this plan. I'm asking a question and it's very altruistic. I live on the corner of 13th Street and 13th Avenue in Invermere. And I heard reference to a school study and I missed that. And I'm wondering if traffic along this all around the schools in Invermere was part of that. So that's just my question. Is the Laird School, was that part of the traffic study in this corner and this access to Pine Ridge and Castle Rock? Thank you.
Oh, Dana, you're on mute if you're.
Thank you. Thank you for the question, Lori. Kayla, do you want to take a stab at that one?
Sure. So in our analysis, we evaluated the AM and PM peak hour of a typical like weekday. So we did that, like school traffic is captured in some of that. And we did look at the intersection of 14th Street and 13th Avenue. You see here. The recommendations in the school safety study, first of all, the school safety study, I believe, is online. I think that I can't remember if we have links on our TMP website to it or not, but it is online. And one of the 14th Street and 13th Avenue modifications involves closing off the east leg of that intersection. And then the 13th Avenue and 13th Street realignment is just realigning the intersection because there's high. Dana, can you see my cursor when I move it? Okay, so the movements at this intersection here, 13th Avenue and 13th Street, the volumes are really high. The ones that go northbound to the east and then westbound to the south. So realigning the intersection so that that's a through movement and you don't have to stop would make that intersection operate a little bit better. And then also there's curb extensions recommended around the school so that it makes pedestrians more visible to vehicles. Yeah, does that answer your question, Lori?
Yeah, it really does. Thank you so much. And I can really see that. I'm just thinking in terms of connecting, that whole, I don't know what project 12 is there on your map, but that's, I would love to see the interlay of the growth, the population growth. I'm sorry, I'm hearing some feedback, but so that's really all my question. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome. Project 12 is converting Johnson Road to a local access only.
And so that's 13th Avenue then?
Yeah, so like it would just only allow residents that live along Johnson Road or close to Johnson Road to access that roadway.
Where does everybody else go?
So this is a long-term project. This connection we're highlighting here that goes from Pine Ridge to Castlestone. Yeah, just an alternative route to 13th Avenue.
Oh, thank you so much. I was wondering what that dotted line was too. Thank you so much.
Thanks for that question, Laura. That's great. We have a question that came through the chat, and I'll just read it out for everyone. So regarding the connected communities and active transportation goals, have you looked at mapping out the preferred network and what that might look like in terms of connecting schools, shopping services, etc.?
Yeah, maybe I can answer.
Go for it.
I can answer that. Yes, and that was a part of the joint active transportation plan, and again, public engagement during the process. And so through that process, that's when the transportation, the active transportation connection were mapped out. And that map is included in the joint active transportation plan, which will be appended to this document as well. So the transportation master plan will be really an integrated transportation master plan, including the joint active transportation plan. And the map will be part of it.
Fantastic, thank you, Sarah. I think we probably have time for maybe one, maybe two more questions. If people have any, feel free to raise your hand or just unmute yourself. A question just came in through the chat, and it says, by charging stations, are you thinking electric vehicles only, or for e-bikes and other electronic mobility equipment as well? Pass that to Kayla, maybe?
Yeah, so that refers to any device, mobility device that needs charging electrically. Right now, the electric vehicle charging stations are more prevalent, but ideally, the district should consider charging stations for all.
Thank you. Well, if we don't have any other questions, maybe we'll just wrap it up here. Oh, one's just come in. Could you please speak to what the roads are currently on the number 10 project, I think is what they're referring to? The improvements for number 10?
What roads are currently there? Maybe?
Yeah, if you could just maybe explain that intersection a little bit more and the improvements that are coming.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's no road there now, but it's kind of just it's going to be a collector road, I believe. Is that right, Sarah? Yeah, proposed upgraded collector roadway.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's there is no roads. There is no road currently at that location. About a location of the route for 10 in the number 10 project or improvements. That's a future connection between Pine Ridge and Castle Rock. And the future connection is when these two community will be further developed to and close to reach probably built out. This connection will provide additional access throughout the community and specifically these two communities in Invermere. But currently there is no roads connecting Pine Ridge to Castle Rock. And everyone is using 13th Avenue to do so. So this connection in the future, once again, this community will grow, will provide some relief on the traffic of along 13th Avenue as a secondary route north to south throughout this portion of Invermere.
Awesome. And someone sort of added, so someone could travel from the number 10 on the map, or the number 11 on the map to number 10. Is that feasible?
If they went like this way.
Okay.
And then, yeah, but not directly.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. And then we've got another question. I think this will probably have to be our last one, unfortunately. And the question is, what levels of snow and ice control will be specified for active transportation routes?
that would be in the active transportation plan that will be in the appendices, I believe.
Yes, and with the transportation master plan, again, we will, the intent as part of the strategy and the ongoing strategies, the operation and maintenance. So there will be in collaboration with the public works in determining which are the best way to clean the sidewalk, specifically after big snowstorms or like during melting the freeze-thaw cycles of it. The district has already some machine that they've been using for this type of clearance, and so it just more awareness about, I guess, the area or critical area that will be specifically more used during for a multimode and active transportation.
Fantastic, thank you, Sarah. So that brings us to, I think, about the end of our session. Seeing no more questions, thank you all for joining us this evening, and we hope that you have a fantastic night. And just a reminder to leave, just go to the lower corner on the right-hand side. There we go, they're all gone. Sometimes you have to tell them how to leave, otherwise they get stuck.
Please leave. Did you stop recording?
Are they all
Alright.
gone now?